Hello, Dr. Jacqueline. I'm just getting sorted here. Evan. And one more. Excellent. Okay, so I am live. It is day number 11. Day number 11 of my 45 days live for the Women's Leadership Circle. I'm Shirley Osborne, and I'm actually having fun with this. I'm actually having quite a lot of fun with this. It is becoming quite instructive for me. And I am, like I said yesterday, it's bringing up things in my life, in my being, thank you, that things I hadn't thought about. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing. For those of you who haven't been here before, let me just let you very quickly know that we're doing this 45 days live from the Women's Leadership Circle, because I started the Women's Leadership Circle to help women find the extraordinary in themselves, the bold, daring, powerful sides of ourselves that allow us to be leaders in our own lives. And I want to clarify that when I say leaders, I mean leading other people, but primarily leading our own lives in a way that is in integrity, is exciting, is fun, it contributes to the world, allows us to make our maximum contribution to the world. You will know that I feel that it is really, really, really important that women find, go after, are allowed the space, the capacity to develop ourselves, express ourselves, find our gifts and talents, and contribute them to the world. And I believe, it is clear to me, I don't even believe, it is clear to me that the world is missing something. The world is missing something. And lots of more and more people are beginning to understand and recognize that now. The world is losing out by not allowing women, by its continued denying women space to develop and express. But anyway, today I'm going to respond to two things. I got some mail last night because we talked yesterday about self-exploration and self-discovery, about knowing ourselves. And I got some messages last night, which said generally that when I said we would talk about self-exploration and self-knowledge, they thought I'd be talking about the inner piece, which we did briefly. But these women were interested and fascinated by my having taken the time to focus on the physical, and can I do some more with that? So I'm going to do that today, and then I'm going to answer a couple of questions that came in yesterday in the chat. So let's talk about the physical. Let's talk about the physical. The physical is this body here: arms, legs, head, heart, kidneys, lungs, spine. This is our body, right? It's the physical part of us. Women, up until now, are still locked in, or would be locked in if all of us, continued to restrict ourselves to the what I call the strictures of our societies. We would focus our lives on our bodies on one of two things. We are taught everywhere in the world, every single country in the world, every culture in the world teaches us, continues to teach us, that women's bodies are meant to do two things, and probably just two things only. One, be available for the pleasure of men, and two, be available for the creation, the perpetuation of the human race. So one or the other, pleasure or motherhood. Every country in the world still has that as a foundation. In the United States, in Europe, in the places that consider themselves the most advanced, women are still struggling with this, which is why one of the reasons why we have all these difficulties with young girls being sexualized at such an early age, which is one of the reasons why we have such difficulty with gender-based violence and the notion that men own women's bodies for their pleasure or to provide their children. Of course, women's bodies are meant for more than that. And of course, we are adults and we recognize that, of course, these two things matter. There are men for whom we want our bodies to provide pleasure. There are children for whom we want our bodies to provide the nurturing space to bring them into the world. But we are not only that. We are not only that. And it is imperative, I think, that as we engage with one another, we discuss and explore these. So when those women sent those messages last night, I thought I would do that this morning rather than leave it for later. We do that today. I believe that health is important. And that sounds like a cliche. Of course, health is important. But you'd be surprised if you stop to think about it, how many of us don't really pay attention to our health. We are not intentional about our health. We don't have rituals and routines that specifically take care of our health. Many of us take our bodies for granted. Bodies are going to do what bodies do, and eventually they will conk out and we will die. If we get sick along the way, we either get better or we don't. Our bodies are what take us through this life. And my conviction from the time I can remember is that I need to make sure my body is always in the best condition to get me through this life. And so I'm intentional about how I take care of my body. And I interact with women a lot who pay attention to their bodies. And nowadays, if you look around, there's a lot of talk about self-care, a lot of talk about self-care. When you look a little bit deeper, a lot of that, a big part of that, is getting your nails done, is getting your hair done, is, candles and bath time, soak in the bath on Thursday evening or something. The real deep, intentional self-care, the caring of our bodies, we don't, many of us, too many of us don't spend enough time. There are those of us who spend a lot of time on diets. So our bodies, we're trying to get our bodies into a certain shape. There are some of us who exercise to get our bodies in a certain kind of shape. What I want to say to you is that all of that is is all well and good, but our primary focus where our bodies are concerned, I think, should be on how our bodies function. Is the strength that we have, is the ability to get through our day and get through our times. I'll tell you a couple of things. Years ago, one of my favorite bands at the time was Gloria Estefan and Miami Sound Machine. Gloria Estefan had a car accident, a vehicle accident, a road accident. I think she was in a bus. She was in her tour bus. And she got really seriously injured. Her back got seriously injured. In fact, at one point, they thought she would not be able to walk again and certainly not dance. She got better. And I remember listening to an interview with one of the doctors on CNN, and he said that one of the reasons why she survived, first of all, and why she's getting better, is because her body was in good shape to begin with. Her body was in good shape to begin with. The fact of the matter is, when your body is in good shape, you don't get injured so much. Let me rephrase that. Your body's more resistant to injury. And your body's more resistant to injury because you have more control over your body. And so there are situations where you can literally take your body out of a space of injury, a risk, before the thing actually happens. And when you can't avoid it, your body itself, your muscles, your body itself protects you to some degree from greater danger. Yes? Your body also heals better, whether from injury or disease. And also, if your body is strong and healthy, it resists disease it more strongly resists disease than when you are not. I mean, that is clear. That goes without saying. But when your body is strong, it also heals from injury and disease faster. And then I look at my own family. My great-grandmother on my father's side died from complications of diabetes. My grandmother on my father's side died from complications of diabetes. One of my father's sisters died from complications of diabetes. I have siblings who are beginning to deal with issues of diabetes and pre-diabetes and so on right now. I made the decision. I literally made the decision, clear as daylight, that I don't know what I'm going to die from, but I promise you it will not be diabetes. It will not be diabetes, because I made a specific intention to take care of my body in a certain way to avoid certain things. And diabetes is one that fortunately we can manage, and we can manage to avoid. And so far I've managed to do that. I'm intentional about how I take care of my body, and I know how my body works. So my body is a little bit off. I know it, I feel it, and I do not ignore it. What happens to a lot of people is that we get the same signals, but we ignore them because we got so much other stuff to do, and we ignore our bodies. We don't take care of our bodies. We don't know how our bodies work. And so often we don't even know how to respond to what's going on in our bodies. And so when I talk about getting to know ourselves, when I talk about the importance of women knowing our bodies, this is one of the things, knowing ourselves, this is one of the things I mean. Know our bodies, know how our bodies work, what our bodies are capable of, what we can push our bodies into, how we can strengthen our bodies and keep them strong to deal with all the stuff that we need to deal with. And even more fundamentally, how we take care of there's a book. I know my cousins gave it to me some years ago. I think it's called Wherever You Go, There You Are, or Wherever You Go, There You Are, something like that. I can't remember the exact thing. What you do is who you are. So how you take care of your body or ignore your body is who you are. So the question is, because we are all of everything that human beings could be, which ones of who you are do you want to be? You want to be the one who takes care of your body, or you want to be the one who ignores your body, and then when it fails on you, you have no idea what happened? I think that knowing how your body works, what your body is capable of, is really important to what you ask of your body. All of us, every single one of us, is going to have trying times, difficult times, stressful times, painful times. You're going to get sick, we're going to get injured. Do we want to think about those things and prepare to be able to resist those things, is the question. Are we the kind of person who will do that? Do we know ourselves to be the kind of person who will take care of her body so that her body can serve her best? And when you ask yourself these questions, when you get to know who you are, you also get to understand how you feel about your body and why you feel that way. And without going without straying too deeply into other areas, one of the issues with many women about our bodies, we ignore our bodies because of these messages we get, because of messages we've got when we were younger that left us with shame and fear. Because the fact of the matter is, I mean, you see it everywhere. Every time you turn around, there's something about women dealing with harassment and potential for violence and risk. The woman who walks around with her keys her keys sticking out of her wrist so she can protect herself, checking her, not getting into an elevator with unknown men, not walking on the streets, that kind of thing. All women, there are women everywhere who deal with this. So we grow up and we get these signals from the time we were children. I remember in Little Montserrat, and people ask me about this, there was a particular street corner in the town where I went to school, which used to cause me untold trouble. I used to walk around to avoid it. There was this place where guys, boys, young men, and older men, well, they're older than me because they were not in school, used to gather. And it was walking past there was like running the gauntlet. They were hooing and hawing and whistling and saying what they would like to do and how nice your legs look and so on. And I used to avoid that. And so many women, so many girls experience this, that we grow up wanting to not think about our bodies. And so we take our bodies for granted. We don't take enough care of our bodies. We don't get to know our bodies. And not knowing your body is not knowing a part of you. That's what this is. If you don't know your body, you don't know there's an important, significant big part of yourself that you don't know. So we can expand on this more with what we have another 30 days, 34 days. So we have time. We'll talk about it again because it's important. It really is important. And especially in the context of just general health, everywhere in the world, we're still struggling with women's access to health and women being considered carefully when they go to see doctors. Still in some of the developed countries, women complain that there's certain doctors who just male doctors who don't understand the bodies. And there are countries in the world where women are prevented from getting an education. So the doctors are not women. And so the women's health issues, the specific women's health issues, are not being taken care of, not being regarded as seriously and as deeply as they ought. So we will talk about health again and self-care, care of the body and knowing your body. Let me just say, self-care begins with care of your body, how your body works. How it looks is secondary. And also, when you're taking really good care of your body, it just looks better. It looks better. Whether it's skinny or it's curvy or it's round or it's tall, it looks better when you're taking care of it. So that's half of your work done. Yes? The other thing I wanted to do before we finish this afternoon, and we're just about out of time, is I wanted to answer this question we got in the chat yesterday. How did you get to where you are now? And what drives you to do the work you do for women? A lot of what has been coming up for me these last days, women hear me talk, and I hear a lot of talk about, I get questions about, and compliments, thank you very much, about courage, about my not being afraid. And I said, I think yesterday or the day before, one of the reasons why I am not afraid, mostly, I think there are two things I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of Walmart superstores and large cruise ships. We talk about that another day, but there's two fears I have. I will not go anywhere on a large cruise ship ever. No. Apart from the fact I love sailing, but there's no large cruise ships, no, and Walmart superstores, no. But the reason why I am not afraid is because I grew up in a place where I didn't have to be afraid. I grew up in a place where I felt safe. I did not grow up being fearful. And that's one of the wonderful, beautiful things about growing up on a tiny island where everybody knows everybody. It's easy to grow up feeling safe. And I grew up feeling safe. My parents took my parents and my community, because everybody's parents and grandparents and aunties and uncles were pretty much yours. They looked out for you. They minded your business, and they looked out for you. And so you felt safe. I grew up feeling safe. And I also was a very physical child. So I grew up with a sense of my physical strength. And interestingly enough, just the other day, talking about this with somebody, what came up for me was I was always also the smallest child in my group. I was younger than most of the kids I hung out with. And I was also very small. I was never skinny. I was always pretty muscular, but I was always very small. And a quick story, I remember my mother telling me about being on Church Road, which is near my secondary school. When I was in my first year of secondary school, she was waiting at the doctor's office because kids were going to lunch. And she saw this little girl going down in my brown uniform. And she said, she looked at this child because she's looking for her children who would be passing by there. And she said, she saw this little girl and she said, I thought they say that Shirley is the smallest girl in school, but this little girl here is smaller than Shirley. And then the same little girl came up and said, hi, mommy. So it was me. That's how small I was, okay? And because I was so small, the older kids took care of me. And I used to climb trees. I think the only tree I can't climb is a coconut tree. It hurts. But I used to climb trees. And because I was so small, I was able to go the highest in the tree and furthest out on the branches. So if you're picking mangoes, you can go way, way out on the branches. I could do that and not fall. So I grew up, even my body made me feel safe and strong. So I grew up like that. And I think that's the foundation of the courage that I have, where I grew up and how I grew up and the condition my body was in. Plus I was a second child. And I was before the first boy. So yes, I had to look out for myself. Yeah. What drives me to do the work I do for women is my recognition that women have a really hard time. Women have a really hard time. I've seen it in my personal life. I've seen the people around me. I mean, it begins with things like, I said I wanted to be a sailor. My dad said no. My dad said no. I wanted to go to sea. When I wanted to do politics, he said no. So, because I was a girl, and I watched growing up where my brother was allowed to do all kinds of things that I just wasn't allowed to. He could go off on the holidays, leave the house in the morning, go play with his friends, and show up when he showed up. And a girl, you're leaving the house. Where are you going? Come back. You got chores, you got things to do. My brother could do his chores on his own time, pretty much. So although he had some of the same responsibilities, he had a lot of leeway that we didn't, that the girls didn't. And then just sort of, I grew up on this small island. I had to leave this small island to go away to school and college. And you go to big cities and you meet people who have lives that you could not have imagined. And then when 25 years ago, I started working with young girls in the United States, and the horrors that I encountered, that these young people had to live, and their mothers, much more so than their fathers, but much more so. I was much more contact with them, with the mothers most of the time than with their fathers. And you get to know how societies work. You get to dig deep into how societies work, and you see how women are ignored, dismissed, neglected, sidelined. And then I worked in politics, and I listened. I went to Jordan in 2017 or 18, I think it was, the Parliament of Jordan. We were doing a conference. I had to present on political violence against women. And in the context of that, I listened to stories of political women from the Mediterranean, North Africa, Mediterranean, and Southeast Asia and so on. I listened to the stories of these women and what they had to go through as children, as girls growing up in these societies, and as women wanting to make a contribution to their communities. And I know the power that women carry. I know the difference women can make. And so I do this work because I want the world to allow it. I want to make my contribution to the world, opening up and recognizing, no, we need to facilitate women's contribution, because otherwise we're denying ourselves. I do this work, and I can do this work because of the personality that I have, that developed this sort of courage from having grown up feeling safe. So it's all part of everything. Everything is part of everything. Just like our bodies, knowledge of our bodies is part of knowledge of ourselves, our inner selves. So everything is part of everything, and that's why I do this work. I don't want to be deprived anymore of all the good that women can bring, basically. So tomorrow we'll go back to the exploration of the inner parts of us, and we're going to talk about women's intuition, because I've had questions about that. What is it? Is it real? Do we ignore it? Do we actually use it? Can we be intentional about using it? Is it something that just happens, or can we actually call on it? All those questions women have sent in and said, let's talk about those. So we're going to talk about those. So drop me messages, emails, comments, and let's talk about them. Yes. And again, I'm inviting you to go on the website, shirleyosborne.com, see what we do there, and make a choice to join us this month. And later in the month, we have our monthly circle, which is really, really cool and fun. Looking to see some of you there. All right. So wherever you are, have a lovely day, pleasant afternoon, pleasant evening, or have a really good, restful night. I'll see you tomorrow. Take good care.